The sirens are a lullaby now. A twisted, metallic song that vibrates through the very marrow of my bones, a constant reminder that the world outside these reinforced walls is tearing itself apart. They wail, they shriek, they fade into the distance only to claw their way back, each rise and fall a breath held and released, a desperate plea swallowed by the unforgiving sky. The fluorescent lights hum a discordant harmony with the alarms, casting a sterile, sickly glow on the endless rows of beds, each one a tiny island in a sea of pain. The air hangs thick and heavy, saturated with the smells of antiseptic, blood, and fear. It clings to your skin, a film of grim reality you can't wash off, no matter how hard you try. You wear it like a second skin, a badge of honor and a mark of trauma, a silent testament to the horrors you've witnessed, the lives you've fought for, the ones you've lost. Outside, the city crumbles. Inside, we try to rebuild it, one broken body at a time. A small hand, no bigger than my own, grips mine with surprising strength. I look down into the wide, frightened eyes of a little girl, her face smudged with dirt and streaked with tears. Her leg is wrapped in a makeshift bandage stained crimson. She doesn't speak, but her gaze is a question, a desperate plea for reassurance, a silent accusation against the world that has shattered her innocence. And in that moment, the sirens fade, the antiseptic stings a little less, and the weight of the world feels just a little bit lighter, because in her eyes I am hope. I remember the sunflowers. Fields upon fields of them, stretching towards the endless blue sky, their faces turned towards the sun like a silent prayer. It was summer, the kind that tasted of lemonade and freedom, the kind that stretched on forever, promising endless possibilities. We were children then, running wild through those fields, our laughter echoing through the golden stalks, our hearts filled with a joy so pure it felt like it could burst. Maria and I inseparable, bound by a bond stronger than blood, a shared understanding that transcended words. We built castles in the wheat fields, crowned ourselves queens of the sunflowers, and swore eternal loyalty to each other, promises whispered on the wind, carried away on the wings of summer. We dreamed of becoming doctors, of healing the sick, of easing the suffering. We spent hours poring over anatomy books, memorizing the intricate pathways of the human body, marveling at its resilience and its fragility. We practiced bandaging each other's imaginary wounds, our clumsy hands fumbling with the gauze, our earnest faces determined to master the art of healing. We knew, even then, that the world was a broken place, and we were determined to fix it, one patient at a time. Our childhood games were preparation, a sacred ritual performed in the golden light of the sunflower fields. Maria, always the braver one, the more determined, the one who never wavered in her conviction. She was the sun to my moon, the fire to my ice, the unwavering force that pulled me forward when I faltered. She was the one who pushed me to apply to medical school, who stayed up late with me, quizzing me on obscure medical terms, who celebrated my successes and comforted me in my failures. She was my rock, my confidant, my sister in every way that mattered. She always said, "We'll change the world, Anya. Together." The last time I saw her, the sunflowers were gone. The fields were barren, scarred by the tracks of tanks, the air thick with the acrid smell of smoke. The sky, once a vibrant blue, was now a bruised and angry gray. She was wearing scrubs, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a weariness that belied her age. We embraced, a silent promise to survive, to continue fighting, to keep the flame of hope alive in the darkness. "Remember the sunflowers," she whispered, her voice hoarse, before disappearing into the chaos of the triage tent. Now the sunflowers only exist in my memory, a golden echo of a life before the sirens, before the blood, before the endless, gnawing fear. A life before Maria became just another number in the daily casualty report. The girl with the missing leg, barely clinging to life after the blast, haunted me. She was just a child, her face smudged with dirt and fear, her eyes wide with a terror that reflected the collective trauma of our city. I remember holding her hand, trying to offer some semblance of comfort as Dr. Anya frantically worked to stabilize her. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smell of antiseptic, a grim perfume that had become synonymous with survival. Then, the second siren wailed. Not a distant, mournful cry, but a piercing shriek that vibrated through the very foundations of the hospital. It was closer this time, much closer. Everyone froze. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor seemed to amplify the silence, each pulse a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Dr. Anya's eyes met mine, a silent understanding passing between us. This was it. This was the moment we had both dreaded. "Evacuate!" she barked, her voice strained but resolute. "Get the patients to the basement. Now!" Chaos erupted. Nurses scrambled to disconnect 4 drips, orderlies wrestled patients onto gurneys, and the air filled with panicked cries. I grabbed the oxygen tank for the little girl, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. The weight of it felt immense, a physical manifestation of the responsibility I carried. As we rushed down the stairs, the ground began to tremble. The walls groaned under the strain, and dust rained down from the ceiling. A deafening roar filled the air, followed by a bone-jarring explosion. The world went white. When I came to, the basement was plunged into darkness. The air was thick with dust and the screams of the wounded. I coughed, trying to clear my lungs, and fumbled for my flashlight. Its beam cut through the gloom, revealing a scene of utter devastation. The ceiling had partially collapsed, burying several patients under rubble. The little girl was gone. I frantically searched for her, my heart pounding in my chest. I clawed at the debris, my hands raw and bleeding, but it was no use. She was buried too deep. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I had failed. I had promised to protect her, and I had failed. The weight of that failure settled upon me, a crushing burden that I would carry for the rest of my life. The days that followed were a blur of exhaustion and grief. We worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded, burying the dead, and trying to maintain some semblance of order amidst the chaos. The hospital, once a place of healing, had become a charnel house. Every corner was stained with blood, every room echoed with the screams of the dying. Sleep was a luxury we could not afford, and when we did manage to snatch a few moments of rest, we were haunted by nightmares. The war eventually ended, but the war within me never did. Now, years later, the sirens still echo in my dreams. I live in a quiet suburb, far removed from the horrors of the war, but the memories are always there, lurking beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. The sound of a sudden bang, the sight of a child in distress, anything can trigger a flashback, sending me spiraling back to that basement, back to the little girl I couldn't save. I work as a therapist now, helping others cope with trauma. It's ironic, I know. A broken healer, trying to mend the wounds of others while my own remain festering. But perhaps that's why I'm good at it. I understand their pain, their fear, their sense of helplessness. I've been there. I am there, every single day. My apartment is meticulously clean, almost sterile. I find comfort in order, in control. It's a way of pushing back against the chaos that still threatens to engulf me. I avoid loud noises, crowded places, anything that might remind me of the war. I live a quiet, solitary life, haunted by ghosts. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself staring at my hands, remembering the feel of the little girl's hand in mine. So small, so fragile, so full of life. And then I remember the feel of the rubble, cold and unforgiving, as I desperately clawed at it, trying to reach her. The guilt washes over me, a familiar wave of nausea and despair. I try to tell myself that I did everything I could, that I couldn't have saved her. But the voice of doubt is always there, whispering in my ear, reminding me of my failure. What if I had been faster? What if I had chosen a different route? What if? The what-ifs are endless, a tormenting chorus that never ceases. They are the price I pay for surviving, the constant reminder of the lives that were lost. I carry them with me, these ghosts of the past, a silent burden that shapes every aspect of my present. And sometimes, when the silence is too deafening, I hear the sirens again, and I know that the war is not over. It will never be over. It lives on, inside me, forever. I see her face in every child I tried to help, a constant reminder of what was lost, and what I can never get back. The sirens may be silent in the world, but they scream inside my soul. The silence after the last siren felt heavier than any explosion. It pressed down, a suffocating blanket woven from exhaustion and grief. I stood in the doorway of the operating room, the sterile air thick with the metallic tang of blood, watching the cleaning crew methodically scrub away the remnants of the day's carnage. Dr. Amira was slumped against the wall, her face pale, eyes closed. Even in stillness, her hands trembled. I walked over and knelt beside her. "Amira," I whispered, my voice hoarse. She didn't respond, lost in a landscape of her own making. I gently touched her arm. "It's over. For today, at least." She opened her eyes, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. The fire that usually burned within her, the unwavering resolve, had been reduced to embers. "Over?" she repeated, the word a dry rasp. "It's never over, Elias. It just pauses. Takes a breath before it starts again." I knew she was right. This wasn't a victory, just a temporary reprieve. But I needed to believe in something, anything, to keep the darkness from swallowing me whole. "Maybe," I said. "Maybe tomorrow will be different." She managed a weak smile. "Maybe. But I doubt it." She pushed herself up, her movements stiff and slow. "I need to see Omar." Omar. Her son. He was brought in a few days ago, caught in the crossfire while walking home from school. A piece of shrapnel lodged near his spine. Amira had refused to operate on him herself, knowing her objectivity would be compromised. Dr. Farid, a visiting surgeon from France, had performed the surgery. It was successful, but Omar remained unconscious. We walked to the pediatric ward, the air lighter here, filled with the faint scent of antiseptic and the soft murmur of mothers tending to their children. Omar lay in a small bed, his face pale against the crisp white sheets. A monitor beeped rhythmically, a fragile counterpoint to the silence in the room. Amira sat beside him, her hand gently stroking his hair. I watched her, my heart aching. She was a warrior in the operating room, a force of nature against the relentless tide of suffering. But here, beside her son, she was just a mother, vulnerable and afraid. "He looks peaceful," I said, trying to offer some comfort. She nodded, her eyes fixed on Omar's face. "He always loved to sleep. Even when he was a baby, he would sleep for hours." She paused, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "I always thought I was protecting him, keeping him safe. But I couldn't. I couldn't protect him from this." I sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. There were no words to offer, no platitudes that could ease her pain. We sat in silence, watching Omar, listening to the steady beep of the monitor, a fragile promise of life in a world consumed by death. After a long time, Amira stood up. "I need to go back to work," she said, her voice stronger now, the resolve returning to her eyes. "There are still patients waiting." I watched her walk away, back into the heart of the storm. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that this was her purpose. To fight, to heal, to offer hope in the face of despair. And I knew, too, that I would stay here, by her side, until the sirens finally stopped. Days bled into weeks. The hospital remained a beacon of light in a city shrouded in darkness. We continued to fight, to save, to mend what was broken. And slowly, miraculously, Omar began to recover. He opened his eyes, recognized his mother, and spoke. His voice was weak, but it was a voice. And it was enough. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I found Amira sitting on the roof of the hospital, overlooking the city. The air was still, the silence unbroken by the wail of sirens. I sat beside her, and we watched the sunset together. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft. "It is," I agreed. We sat in silence for a while, lost in our own thoughts. Then, Amira turned to me, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "Thank you, Elias," she said, "for staying." I smiled. I wasn't going anywhere. She took my hand, her grip firm. "We will rebuild this city," she said. "We will heal these wounds. We will create a future for Omar, and for all the children who have suffered." I looked at her, at the fire that burned within her, and I knew that she was right. The war had taken so much, but it had not taken everything. It had not taken our hope. It had not taken our humanity. And as long as we held on to that, we could survive anything. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the city was plunged into darkness. But in the distance, I saw a single light flicker on, then another and another. And I knew, with a certainty that warmed my heart, that even in the darkest of nights, there is always light to be found. And that light, that hope, was enough to keep us going.